So let's go ahead and plan a training session. With all the knowledge you now have about leadership, how to create a safe space and room for important conversations, how to strengthen your players' self-esteem, self-confidence, and self-leadership, and how to create a safe learning environment where you develop your football players. Remember that all training sessions should be planned looking at the game in a holistic perspective. So actually training football, training attacking, transitioning, and defending with as game-like exercises as possible, where players perform football actions based on the information process. As football is a team sport, we need to take players' interaction and communication into account, as this is key for the game. Interaction and communication can take place through words, movement, gestures, facial expressions, and body language. And it is important that players get to practice different kinds of communication throughout training. What you need to know before you plan your training is for how long the practice is, what space you have available to use, and a rough idea of how many players you will have at practice and how many coaches can participate, and of course what equipment and materials you have access to. Once you have this information, you define the theme of the training. To plan a training, we encourage you to use a method where each training session is based on a specific theme that is highlighted through all the different parts of the training session, as this enhances your players' learning. However, the structure of the training follows a given structure. First, you gather the team and all coaches in a circle to do the check-in and to introduce the purpose of the training. Then you continue with your preparatory training, so the warm-up. Once players are warmed up, you continue with small-sided games and skills training. And then at the end of your training, you allow your players to cool down and then end the session by once again gathering in a circle to first summarize the training and highlight the players' learning, and to then end with the checkout routine. So once your players have gone home, you and your co-coaches take time to sum up the players' and coaches' reflections from the training. And together you do an evaluation of the training, noting at least one lesson learned. In this way, you make sure that not only your players develop, but you do as well. All planning should be based on long-term development and motivation. When you plan your training sessions, you will be better able to develop your players, both individually and as a team. To help you actually carry out your planning in practice and to do so over time, make sure that it is clear in your planning what is to be done, how and when it is to be done, and who is responsible for each task. Decide on your planning, document it, implement it, evaluate it, and follow up. In this way, you will be able to track your players' and team's development throughout a season. Now we will focus on what you need to plan an individual training session. What you then do to plan your season is to plan how each individual training session leads to the other in a way that develops your players and team in the direction you are striving towards. Decide what you need to focus on first and make a plan for how to do so in the next training sessions. And once you feel that you've reached the goal, you can take up the next challenge. But remember to base your goals on where your team is, to allow for each player to develop from their individual starting point. So now that we will plan a training, we will do so by giving a concrete example based on a training group with 18 players, aged between 9 and 13 years old. We will have a part of a pitch available for a practice, sized about 30 times 20 meters. We'll have 1 large and 2 smaller goals and 3 footballs. And remember that you can always make goals out of what you have, like water bottles, jerseys, or rocks. Just be creative. The theme for this example training will be to focus on further developing your players' understanding of the game. A training session is usually between 60 and 90 minutes. We will follow the set structure for a training, starting with the check-in, the warm-up, small-sided games and skills training, to then cool down, sum up the training, and check out. The main part of the training, the small-sided games and skills training, can be performed as one exercise after the other, or in stations where the players themselves choose what and in what order they want to practice the elements of the training. If you have the opportunity, you can prepare the training area throughout the training session beforehand to allow for a smoother flow for the players between the different exercises. If you're several coaches, one coach can gather the group and give a short introduction to the exercise, and the other leaders prepare the pitch to be ready to use. When practice is underway, you should strive to keep the players' level of activity and intensity as high as possible, so avoiding waiting time or long instructions. Keep your instructions brief and use direct demonstrations and let the players learn by trying. So let's begin. The training session begins by gathering your players and co-coaches in a circle. The gathering has a dual purpose. It's a way to welcome and acknowledge all players and a way to initiate and kickstart the training. You as a coach always start the training by checking in. In your planning, prepare what question you're going to ask the group. However, if you discover that something else might need to be highlighted, well, you can of course change the question to something that is more relevant in the situation. As the check-in helps us to create a safe space and allow us to acknowledge each individual player in a way that strengthens their self-esteem, while you at the same time give the team the possibility to leave whatever happened throughout the day aside to focus on the team and the training, allow it to take the time you need. Make sure that all players check in before you check in last. After the check-in, you briefly talk about the content of the training, what to practice and why, before we start with the exercises. But be brief. Get started with the exercises as quickly as possible. So to give you an example, it could be like this. All right, thank you all for checking in. It's great to have you all here. Today we will focus on understanding the game. So we will work together to give those who have the ball several options, create space for them to dribble the ball forward themselves or to be able to make a pass. So we will start with the warm-up, then we will play small-sided games 4 versus 4, and after that another game 8 versus 8. Then we'll play, and after that we'll end the session with a relay. All right, let's get started. The first exercise in the practice is the preparatory training or warm-up. So the purpose of the warm-up is to give the players the opportunity to, in a playful way, start thinking about the theme and focus for this session. Let the players start to collaborate and communicate, and of course to warm up and prepare their body for training. Depending on the age of your players, they need different kinds of warm-ups. So if you coach children who have not entered puberty, you can start immediately with a game or exercise where they run fast. But if your players are teenagers, so have entered puberty, or if they're even older, you should start slowly by walking or jogging in different directions and gradually increase the pace and intensity of the warm-up. Include the ball in the warm-up and make sure to include the different fitness elements, so activation, dynamic mobility, running technique, footwork, and jump, land, run. So use those elements in shorter breaks where all players do the exercises simultaneously. If you want more examples of warm-up exercises, go back and check the previous video. So for our example training, we will use 10 to 15 minutes for the warm-up. We're already gathered in a circle from the check-in, so I'm counting my players as they stand to have groups of 6 players that can then form a circle of their own. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You form a circle over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You form a circle over here, and so on until all players are organized in groups of 6 standing in their own smaller circle. Okay, now let's start to activate our muscles and work together as a team. Everyone will do the exercises simultaneously, so we all do the exercises in our circle at the same time. We start with lunges. We will do 10, doing 5 on each leg forwards and then backwards in the same way. All right, do it together now. Make sure everyone stays at the same pace. Wait for each other if needed. Adjust the pace to each other. All right, great. Okay, we move on. Get down in the plank position. Start by standing in a plain plank position. Now, each of you in the circle will take turns to lead a variant of the plank position. The others imitate. Okay, let's go. Great. Now in your groups, move to stand back to back, and together we will do 10 squats. Okay, let's go. Well done. Now we will start moving and continue to cooperate. Okay, we'll play dip ball. So you stand 3 and 3. So this is now your team. You start playing against the team that was in your small circle. So the rules: you dip the ball to the ground when you have caught it. Then you pass it, throwing it to a teammate. If you forget to dip the ball, you hand the ball to the other team. You score goals by catching the ball behind the line here or there. All right? So when you have the ball in your hands, you cannot run. So you can only move around without the ball. If you forget yourself and run with the ball, you hand it over to the other team. All right? Everyone in place? Go ahead and play. So here, after giving the instructions, I throw out the balls randomly to the 3 groups. I'll let them play for about 1 to 2 minutes, then I'll break. Okay, stop. Stand with your feet hip width apart. Put your hands on the ground. Walk your hands forward on the ground out into plank position. Stay in plank position. Put the right foot next to your hand. Keep the left leg straight back and then make a rotation with the right arm lifted up in the air. Good. Now change leg. Right leg back and left leg forward. Rotate with your left arm up in the air. Okay, change again. Do it 2 more times on each leg. Once you're done, get ready to play again. So then we continue to play for another 1 to 2 minutes. Then stop. All right, time to get your feet moving properly. Imitate me. Move your feet as fast as you can. Okay, go. Now let's do some ski jumps. First we do larger jumps, then smaller, faster moves. Okay, remember your arms. Go. Okay, it's time for the next game. We change opponents, play rock, paper, scissors, and the winner moves to the left, okay? Now you have got new opponents for the next game. Now this is your last game of dip ball, so let them play for 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, let's gather here. Stand in 3 lines next to each other. Let's finish up our warm-up with a few runs, okay? First, do 4 fast jumps to the side, then sprint as fast as you can. Go! All right, jog back and wait for everyone to get back. We do this 3 times, all right? 3 times. Now let's end with intervals. So start jogging, increase the speed gradually and sprint the last stretch. Then jog back. We do this 2 times. Let's go. So that was the warm-up. Give your players a quick break before you move on to the next part of the training session, the main part of the session. Here is where you practice football actions or interactions through small-sided games, or if you want to practice a specific moment of the game or a skill, what we call skills training. Plan for the players to get many repetitions, but make sure it happens with variety and that it is challenging for the players. When playing the game of football, it is incredibly rare that exactly the same conditions arise or exactly the same situations arise. So in order to consciously strive for the players to learn to solve all the different situations that may arise on the field, remember to take this aspect into account when planning. There should be room for unknown outcomes in a given exercise. When planning your training, you always also plan for yourself as a coach as well, for how you are to position yourself, to be attentive and curious about how the players solve the situations that arise, so that you can have reflective conversations about them with the players. Therefore, we avoid using ready-made passing patterns, for example, to allow for interactions between the players and their individual football actions to take place in training, similar to what happens in the game. And you yourself position yourself to be able to move around and observe all the players completing the actions. Sometimes a single skill may need to be trained. Sometimes you want to practice cooperation in game exercises. You as a coach plan for the number of repetitions, how long the player should be active, and whether they should have long or short rest between repetitions. Even if a single skill needs to be trained, such as how to strike a ball when passing or shooting, you think about what this football action looks like in the game and strive to plan the exercise accordingly. We need repetition with variation and the possibility of many different solutions to any one given challenge or exercise. Allow for the players to be creative. So a concrete example can look like this. So now we will practice working together in the team so that the player who has the ball will have several options to choose from. All right, we will be divided into 2 groups. At this station here, we will play 4 versus 4 with goalkeepers. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You are a team. Decide who starts playing the goalkeeper and in what order you will take turns as you play. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're their opponents. Okay, you also choose who starts as the goalkeeper and in what order you will take turns so that you can change it smoothly during the game. All right, your field is here, so half the training area, and the goals are these small ones. Let's start to play. All right, so you're 8 players left. You will play another game over here. So I want a goalkeeper in the big goal and a player in a team with the goalkeeper. You will play 3 versus 1 plus goalie. So keep playing until the ball goes out of bounds or into goal. So a new ball always starts from a throw-in here at the sideline. The task here is to score goals. So the team with 3 players score goals in the big goal. When the goalkeeper's team takes the ball, you continue to play as usual. The goalkeeper's team scores by playing the ball through one of the 2 water bottle goals I've set up here and over there. All right? So when you score or the ball goes out, the new players will enter. So the 3 of you who will be resting on the side while the other 3 plays, be ready to jump in as it's your turn. All right, let's go. So then after a while, you switch the groups so all players get to practice both exercises. So as you know, I have 18 players. So I can then ask 2 players that usually want to practice as goalkeepers to stay on the 4 versus 4 field and be joined by the 8 players from the other group to continue playing 4 versus 4 with goalkeepers, while the other 8 then divide themselves into the 3 versus 1 plus goalkeeper formation. The next part to plan in the training session is for your players to play games of football with teammates and opponents. At least half the session should be some kind of game where you allow your players to play football with teammates and opponents. So the simplest form of play is to divide the players into different teams and let them play against each other. Try to have few players in any one team so that everyone really gets the opportunity to touch the ball often. For example, a 4 versus 4 with goalkeepers is really great. When you as a coach observe your team playing, you can observe how they solve the challenges they face and talk to the individual players about it, and let the players share their solutions with each other. You as a coach facilitate the players' opportunity to learn the game of football. They develop by playing and talking about their experiences of succeeding and failing with their interactions and football actions. You as a coach can vary the size of the field, the number of players in the team, and how long you play and rest during your training sessions. By doing so, you will let your players have different requisites in training, allowing them to be more creative and develop their skills to adapt to any different situation that might arise in a game. So by also playing with several teams, you can do a mini tournament so that the players will meet different teams in training. Or you can divide your training into stations where 2 teams play a game and the others are at another station and practice fitness or their football technique in order to keep the level of activity among all players high throughout the training. To challenge yourself as a coach, when you've gathered experience as a coach and know what it looks like when your players solve situations that arise, and you have your own game idea or match plan that you want to implement, you can also design the games in training with different principles that you want the team to follow. But keep letting the players solve different situations in a creative way. In attacking, how do we build up our game to finish and score goals? How do we act when we win the ball or lose the ball? How do we play in transitions? And in defending, how do we prevent the other team from building up their game so that we prevent them from scoring? What you practice in training will be what your players then do in games. So the game in training should follow the game that you expect the players to perform in a match. Provide the overall idea of the game and then let your players be creative and find their own solutions to the different situations you as a coach focus on in their development process. So in our example training, I would continue like this. All right, so now we will play a game on a larger pitch. Remember to keep in mind what football actions or solutions that worked and what did not work in the games in the previous exercise. Share your experiences with your new teammates as you plan how your team will play. So, we'll have 1 extra player in one of the teams so that we really get the chance to practice finding more alternatives for the player who has the ball in possession. Other than that, it's just a regular game. When the ball goes over the line though, a new ball is started through a throw-in from the sideline. The team with 1 more player always starts with the ball when it goes out. We will have 1 player on the sideline responsible to start the game again through the throw-in. So we make sure we take good starting positions before the new ball is started, alright? So go back to the groups we had in the warm-up. So these 3 teams will be the teams we play with. 1 team will play with all 6 players against the big goal. So you will start like this. 1 team, you will be waiting on the sidelines and planning for your game. And your team will start by playing against the team with 6 players, but you will be playing with 4 players and 1 goalkeeper in the other big goal, all right? So your last player will stay on the sideline and be the one who starts the game again if the ball goes out and you start with the throw-in, all right? So that's it. Any questions? All right. I'll explain it for your team again. The rest of you get ready to start playing. After a set time, the teams rotate so all of them get to play with 6 players. After playing, it's time for the last physical part of the session, what we call cooling down. Cooling down enables players to relax, both emotionally and physically, and gives the body time to recover immediately after the exercises. Cooling down can be done by practicing a specific football technique, doing a relay, or playing a game. Example of exercises for children and teenagers can be to practice precision by shooting on a goal or to hit the crossbar or a post or pass in between set lines. You can also cool down by playing a game to add versatility to the physical training, like playing a tag and chase game like the tunnel, where 1 or several players are it and need to chase the other players to tag them. When a player is tagged, she stands with her hands and feet on the ground, straight arms and straight legs, but high in the air, forming a tunnel. And to be freed, a friend needs to come and crawl or eel through the tunnel. For young players, putting away the equipment or collecting the balls is another way of cooling down, which also gives them a sense of responsibility. You can also cool down by playing a game to have fun together, such as playing football tennis or football golf, or building a human pyramid, or coming up with a dance. It's only your creativity that sets the limits. And remember to also use the player's creativity. As the theme for our example training is to practice our understanding of the game, I will end it with a relay that requires collaboration. So this will be the final 5 minutes of the training before our checkout. All right, so then we'll do a final relay. You still have your 3 teams, 6 players in each, so stand here in a row. The first one stands here and has a ball in her hand and is facing her teammates, okay? So the last one will stand over there and all of you others spread out in between them. All right, stand up in your positions. So this is how we do it. The first one will throw the ball to the second player. She catches the ball, throws it back and sits down. So the first one throws the ball to the third player in line, who throws it back and sits down, and so on. So when the last one gets the ball, the person runs up front with the ball and becomes the new first one, all right? Who throws the ball to the new number 2, and so on. Until the player that started out as the first player is back in the starting position. So it's a competition. Let's see who is the first team to complete it. Once you're back in your initial line as you're standing now, all of you will sit down so that we can see that you're done. All right, everyone in place, ready, set, go. So now to finish up, you gather your team in a circle again to finalize your training. First, summarize the content of the training by asking reflective questions. For example, what have we been practicing today? What have you learned? What do you want to do more of? What are you most proud of today? How does it feel right now? Tell us something that someone else did well today, or praise a friend who did something that surprised you. So continue to be curious and interested in what and how your players share and how they express themselves. Since you work with a check-in and check-out, you have already created a habit among your players to express themselves and to be able to listen to each other. But also remember that it takes time to learn how to listen and how to express yourself. So allow your players to develop at their own pace. So closing your training in this way can look like this. All right, well done everyone. Let's gather here, stand in a circle. Now let's summarize today's training. So what have we focused extra on today? Yeah, just that, understanding the game. So tell me, what have you learned today? Give me some examples of what you can do as a teammate to help the one who has the ball to have more alternatives for what you want to do with it. So what did you see teammates do today that help us as a team to give ourselves more alternatives when playing? So, for example, I saw that Jessica, several times she backed out towards the line and you made yourself playable with your body facing the game, and you had eye contact with your teammate to show that she could pass to you. And you also used a large part of the pitch in that position. So that was really well done. Anyone else who wants to take the chance to praise a teammate? All right, thank you guys for today. You've all fought hard. Continue to practice even when an action didn't end up the way you wanted. And that's exactly how we learn, by continuing to practice and develop. You've all worked really hard as a team today. So really great work, all of you. Now to close off your training, you continue with the checkout. In your planning, the question may be related to the theme of the session or be something else you think is important in the group, or an opportunity for players to share how they're feeling. So in our concrete example, we end with checking out like this. All right, it's time to check out. So today we end the session by sharing one word that describes a really good teammate. All right, that was a full training. It may feel a bit bulky when a training is presented like this in words, but it is important to plan all parts of the training. The check-in, presenting the theme of the training, warming up, skills training or small-sided games, then actual games, cooling down, and closing the training with a reflective summary and the checkout. Make sure to document your training plan in a way that allows you and your co-coaches to use it to evaluate the training. We encourage you to do that after every single training. So we do that in order for us as coaches to also always stay in constant development. And it's really easy. As coaches, you gather and talk for a few minutes about how the training went, what worked well, what can be improved, and you document some lessons learned. So ask yourselves, what should we continue to do? What should we stop doing? And are there any new thoughts that have arisen? So for the training we just went through, the coach reflection and evaluation could be like this. So what should we continue to do? Well, play a lot in training. The players really think it's fun. What should we stop doing? Stand in the same place when observing the game. We need to remember to change places to get new perspectives and be able to acknowledge all players. And we also need to remember to also coach the goalkeeper in the game and in the exercises. All right, any new thoughts? Well, some players found it easy to take a new position to be able to get a pass when we play dip ball, but not in the games. So how can we transfer the feeling of it being easy into the game? We need to continue to think about how we can make players have fun and feel that playing football is just as easy as playing any other game. When reflecting on your training, you as coaches can also highlight any specific issues you've noted among players and help each other make a plan for how you can best address any issues that come up. So this was one specific example of a training, but that follows a given structure that you need to plan your training and highlights what to think about as a coach. So we have focused on planning one individual training, but remember that when you plan your season, plan for your players and team development over time. Most national football federations have examples of a player development plan for different age groups where there are good examples of long-term planning as well as specific and relevant exercises to give your players the opportunity to develop. And remember that, just as your players, you will learn by practicing. If you don't know where to start, start with the training we just did.